When I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, I overheard a conversation among adults about a movie. They said it was rated R, but that they thought that it was even too graphic for that rating. I had no idea what graphic meant in this context, but I was really intrigued to know that there were more movie ratings than I'd previously heard of. Rated R was already shorthand for horrible and scary and gross beyond belief in my mind, so the concept that there were ratings even worse than rated R was shocking to me. I went to my parents and asked what the rest of the movie ratings were, and they told me. When they mentioned the rating X was a thing, I was pretty excited because I thought it might be a rating for movies about extreme sports like skating, which I've always been into. My parents let me down gently, saying that X-rated movies are not about that, and they're really for just really messed up adults. Keep in mind that this was probably in like 2001, and I had no way to search for or find anything age inappropriate. Telling me this was perfectly appropriate at the time, I think. What kind of stuff is in those movies? I asked. With a candor typical of my mom, she simply replied, a lot of naked people. Absolutely appalled as a fundamentalist Christian child, I had to know, why would someone make a movie like that? Because the devil has a hold on their heart, was her response. I can still remember the vivid image that popped into my head when she said that. I saw a man sitting in a dark room at a wooden desk illuminated only by a single dim lamp, writing down what would become the movie script for an X-rated film. Lurched over him was a dark, snarling creature, possessing the man's mind and dictating every word of his screenplay. For years afterward, this is how I thought all sinful movies were created, through direct inspiration from demons. Fast forward to my early adolescence, when I started hearing a lot of negative talk about someone in politics named Hillary Clinton. I asked my parents who that was and why she was so bad. They basically told me that she was a woman who wanted to make America really bad for Christians like us. When I asked why she would do that, they gave me a familiar answer. The devil has a hold on her heart. So not only was Satan controlling people to make disgusting, sinful movies, he was also controlling some of the most powerful people in our country in an effort to hurt Christians like me. Terrifying stuff. Now, as awful as all of that sounds, the Christian teachings I heard on a daily basis growing up were not usually so scary. We spent a lot of time cultivating love, compassion, gentleness, charity, and selflessness. We gave to the poor, we housed people in our community, we volunteered at homeless shelters, that kind of thing. I did develop some deeply seated irrational fears as a kid because of the demon stuff, but I also did a lot of moral reflection and developed principles that I still hold on to this day. The Christianity I knew was not just about fearing and fleeing from darkness. It was also about being a light through loving unconditionally. One of the reasons I left the church was actually because they didn't live up to their supposed values. I share this with a lot of ex-Christians. As I've said on this channel before, leaving Christianity was one of the most Christian decisions I have ever made. Today, years after leaving, I'm a pluralist. If people believe in God or gods, if people are religious, I'm generally cool with that. I've spoken plenty about religious harm on my channel, which is a very real problem, but I'm not against religion inherently. And even though I'm not religious, don't believe in the supernatural, and think that's best for some people, I actually think being religious can be good for a person, depending on the person and depending on the form of religion. So, to the Christians watching, keep this in mind. This is not a video where an anti-theist talks about how every form of Christianity is inherently evil. There's a lot of talk of a meaning crisis happening right now, particularly among younger people, and that one way Gen Z men are increasingly seeking meaning is through Christianity. They're looking for a re-enchantment of life, where they can see significance and meaning in everyday things.
So when you have essentially a decline in religion, an increase in the secular nature of society, for most people, they need something to fill that void.
We in the church have to do our very best to recover that sense of enchantment. Enchantment, in the way I use it, is simply the feeling that God is present and that everything has meaning, that there is ultimate transcendent meaning that we can know and relate to.
Again, if people want to do that, I don't inherently have a problem with it, and I actually wish them well in finding a sense of fulfillment in their lives. But what's up with young men, not young women, being more attracted to Christianity? So first of all, this idea that young men are converting to Christianity en masse is not backed up by any statistic I can find. Clickbait articles from the New York Post have published this idea, but one denomination with only a couple 100,000 members in the US, growing by maybe even double-digit percentage points, does not actually demonstrate a particularly large trend. What we do know is that Gen Z men are more religiously affiliated, particularly with Christianity, than Gen Z women. Are they converting? Are they just sticking to their family's religion more? We're not sure. It actually could be both. If this article in the New York Times is any indication, young women are less interested in the church because they feel it harbors prejudicial attitudes against minorities. However, they still score higher than men on measures of spirituality and attachment to God, suggesting that they are not necessarily abandoning their internal beliefs. Young men, meanwhile, are attracted to the church because, as one campus minister puts it, Christianity is perceived as one institution that isn't initially and formally skeptical of them as a class. Additionally, religion is right-coded and coded more traditionalist for young people. A final thing from this article, this is a Gen Z guy talking. Young men are attracted to harder truths, Mr. Ferrier said. Sometimes, he added, he wants to hear messages with a little wrath of God in them. So the boys want their Christianity a little rough, a little cranky.
A freaking soft generation. Physically soft, mentally soft, spiritually soft, relationally soft.
That is a little bit naughty. But dare I say, there might be a hint of truth in that one.
With all this said, you'd be correct to think that Gen Z men favor Trump, although sometimes this surprises people. 29 sources have reported on this, and the coverage varies quite a bit. While left-leaning sources frame this as an unusual phenomenon to be explained, right-leaning sources treat this more as an obvious fact that the left just doesn't understand. I discovered this story, of course, on Ground News, an independent app and website I've partnered with and trusted for years now to help me get a balanced view of the stories I'm researching. Their platform organizes every published perspective on an issue in one place with data on each outlet's political bias, credibility, and financial incentives. You can get 40% off the same Vantage plan I use every day by going to ground.news/skeptic. You'll also get access to one of their most important features right now, their blind spot feed. It's dedicated to surfacing the most important stories that are being completely ignored by one side of the political spectrum or another. With Trump back in office and media outlets speaking to the partisan bias of their audiences, I regularly check the blind spot feed on my phone or straight from my inbox to make sure I understand what's really going on. So, if you'd like to read the news skeptically, go to ground.news/skeptic or scan the QR code on your screen to get the same Vantage plan I use every day for just $5 a month. Right now is the perfect time to take back control of how you stay informed and find new trusted sources of information while you're at it. Okay, so young men may be attracted to Christian institutions because they perceive them to take an aggressive posture, presumably against supposed evil, and because Christian institutions do not typically place blame on men for that evil. I think certain far-right figures know this well and are seeking to offer young men a very specific solution to the so-called meaning crisis through a particular brand of Christianity. In the forthcoming book, The Shadow Gospel, How Anti-Liberal Demonology Possessed U.S. Religion, Media, and Politics, co-authors Whitney, Phillips, and Mark Brockway explore the history of a dark, politically expedient form of Christianity. This is where I found the term Dark Enchantment. As cultural theorist Daniel Wojcik emphasizes, religious apocalypticism is acutely appealing as a form of dark enchantment. Enchantment as a vernacular religious framework describes how humans create meaning, make sense of things, and enliven their existence in a world seen as drab, mechanistic, and soulless, and which is replete with randomness, adversity, and suffering. Dark enchantment is equally enlivening, Wojcik argues, but is derived from the perception of darker forces at work in human existence, including demons, evil conspiracies, and various flavors of apocalypticism. As Wojcik explains, it can be exciting to be thrust in the middle of a cosmic end times drama. One's life takes on newfound significance. And for those who are certain that they are the chosen ones, cosmic significance contributes to heightened self-esteem in the face of perceived evil. Few, if any, I'd argue, are more effective in and focused on delivering a sense of dark enchantment to young men than Charlie Kirk, who is arguably the most powerful, popular, and influential figure in Gen Z Christianity.
I'm Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action, together the largest conservative grassroots organizations in the country.
He started Turning Point USA in 2012, and today it has over 800 chapters and over 250,000 members. It started as a political organization to mobilize young people on college campuses to vote Republican, but now it's marketing itself as a Christian ministry in actual churches. Kirk went on to forge a relationship with Pastor Rob McCoy, head of Godspeak Calvary Chapel of Thousand Oaks in California, and together they founded Turning Point Faith. The effort reaches out to pastors nationwide to encourage them to embrace political messages as a church growth strategy, an initiative that has doubled as an engine for turning out the pastors' congregations for conservative candidates. The political messages Kirk and his allies espouse have also come to include constant defense of Trump, as well as Christian nationalism. McCoy has spread falsehoods about the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, for example, and has defended a member of his church sentenced to jail for his role in the insurrection. By the way, I have no relationship to Pastor McCoy here. I actually do have relationships to a few Pastor McCoys, but not this one. We might share a kind of cowboy-ass last name, but I don't know him. I don't condone him. Thank you. Just a brief look into Charlie Kirk's messaging to his primarily young male audience reveals an apocalyptic ideology obsessed with supposed evil.
Our form and structure of government was built for the people that believed in Christ our Lord. One of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian nation, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. So you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population.
The fact that people are out here with a different religion than me is what's causing all the problems. You, watching at home, cannot be free until everyone stops being different from me.
I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Black people are a threat to our safety because DEI is giving them power over us that they don't deserve. Never mind that DEI initiatives don't mean putting people without training on a dangerous job just because of their race. Adjusting your hiring practices and doing sensitivity training does not mean regular training just doesn't happen. Obviously, Kirk is using this as an excuse to just shit on non-white people. This historic event will likely be one of the largest and most consequential in American history. The team at Trump Students and Turning Point Action are honored to help make this happen, sending 80-plus buses full of patriots to D.C. to fight for this president. Check out the date on this one. Yeah, Charlie Kirk deleted this tweet later, but it doesn't change the fact that he propagated the lie that the 2020 election was stolen by some imaginary evil and helped rile people up into an insurrection.
Joining us now is Steve Sarer, who I find to be incredibly interesting and one of the most talented noticers in the country. Steve, welcome to the program. We like to say on the show that people committed the crime of noticing. You obviously started to, you popularized that, meaning using their brains and using pattern recognition. You might be one of the most talented noticers on the planet. What are some of the things that you noticed long before the national media did, and how have you been treated as a result?
For those unaware, the term noticer is a term that anti-Semites use for themselves. A noticer is an anti-Semite who notices supposed coincidences of an imagined international Jewish conspiracy. Steve Sarer is a proponent of the white supremacist pseudoscience of racialism, also called race science, and a propagator of the Great Replacement conspiracy theory. Noticing is what he calls his work arguing for that absolute paranoid racist bullshit, of which Charlie Kirk is a big supporter. As this article in The Atlantic says, race science is hardly a new idea. During Jim Crow, the idea was used as justification for sterilizing black people. In Nazi Germany, the veneer of science and biology was used as a pretense for genocide. Kirk doesn't hide these views of his either. He's produced entire episodes of his show with titles like Great Replacement is not a theory, it's a reality. Okay, last clip because I'm sure you're getting the picture.
So you love God. So you must love his law. How do you love somebody?
Here we go, folks.
You love them by telling them the truth, not by confirming or affirming their sin. And it says, by the way, Miss Rachel, you might want to crack open that Bible of yours. In a lesser referenced part of the same part of Scripture is in Leviticus 18, is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying. So, Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters.
If you weren't yet convinced that Kirk believes in and advocates for violence against minorities, then this should change that. His idea of loving your neighbor as yourself, in this case, is literally killing them. In preaching all of this, Kirk does offer a structure on which his audience may build meaning. He says, there's a great evil in this world. It's powerful. It's all around us. It's lurking in the people you don't understand and is coming to destroy everything you hold dear. It must be overcome, so join me in a crusade against it. This is a very lopsided Christian message. Like the Christianity in which I was raised, Kirk's Christianity includes a narrative of supreme evil. But, unlike my former Christianity, it is entirely centered around the concept of evil. And any talk of goodness or love is twisted into promoting violence and hatred, feeding only his audience's darkest impulses. One of the reasons I think Christianity can be good for some people is that I've seen forms of it motivate love for the oppressed, charity to the needy, scorn of power and wealth, and the cultivation of a sense of purpose and meaning through making the world a better place for all people. Kirk's shadow Christianity is the exact opposite. Not only is this clearly dangerous to the meek who are supposed to inherit the earth, but I'd argue it's also dangerous for its believers. Hatred and rage are poison to those who cultivate them, especially in the long term. They damage one's character, which leads to the destruction of one's relationships. This, in turn, leads one to a life of loneliness and despair. Dark Enchantment may provide young men a high in the short term, but in the long term, I believe it will take from them much more than it ever offered. Shadow Christianity, then, might actually drive a meaning crisis for young men in the long term. It thrives on male grievances, so it invents grievances for them. Then it offers them a solution that actually causes problems for them, effectively creating for them actual grievances which motivate them to fall deeper into dark enchantment. This is a vicious cycle that benefits no one but certain powerful figures and agitators like Charlie Kirk and his peers. My hope for all the victims of Dark Enchantment is that young Christian men come to realize that if there is any great evil in this world, its true form is found in those who demonize the meek so that the powerful and corrupt may inherit the earth instead. Thanks for watching. I've been Drew of Genetically Modified Skeptic. A special thanks to my patrons for their constant love and support. If you want to support my work, subscribe and check out the religious studies courses I produce with Dr. Joseph Laycock. They should be attached to the video below. As always, if you are an apostate in need, there are resources linked in the description to help you find community and mental health support. Remember to be kind to others in the comments, and until next time, stay skeptical.